Hi, blessings in Jesus' name. So it just reoccurred to me because it occurred to me before and I never made a video on it. Sometimes you think of things and they go out of your mind before you act on them. But it occurred to me because I have been concerned about the quality of the food chain. Given the use of pesticides and chemicals, the subpar farming methods that they're implementing would result in a distinct lack of nutrition in the plant. And that caused me to think about something. There's a push on now to abandon the consumption of animals and favour the consumption of plants. Now, in the ideal, there would be nothing wrong with that. You might actually see some health benefits by reducing your meat intake. But that's assuming that the meat quality is good and the vegetable quality or the fruit quality is good or the herb quality is good. So assuming that all things are equal, abandoning eating meat as regularly as most people in the Western world do, or altogether, would not be detrimental to the health if the quality of the food you're eating was up to par, was nutritionally adequate. Failing that, which is the case now, because if you look to the foods in the supermarket, they are pale, underripe, haven't ripened properly. Even if they go on to ripen, in other words, they haven't ripened properly, so that they've sort of been in transit and because of the change in climate have stalled in their ripening process, and then once they entered into a warm environment sort of continued in the ripening process but not properly or fully because it was stalled at one point. So all of these problems with the modern food chain, transportation, is one concern. But the use of pesticides, chemicals, and the genetic modification of food, altering the foods in their genetic composition, may cause a problem with your body's identification of them as food, which might spike an autoimmune reaction. Because your body's not identifying this as food, so it might identify it as a foreign body. We have these concerns, but even what they talk about we can't measure. The average person doesn't have the technology to measure these things that they speak of in terms of the nutrient quantities and qualities of the food, or the genetic compositions of the food. We just look at the food and it looks like a tomato, or it looks like a banana, or it looks like an orange, or it looks like this or that. But even the modern banana, even the Cavendish banana, has been modified so that it doesn't contain seed, and so too have the grapes. I was unable to find a grape in Aldi today with a seed in it. That would mean I could buy a punnet of seeds and be incapable of growing grapes from those fruits. That should concern you. It should concern you that those producing the food are becoming the only ones with access to seed, because that means they're the only ones with access to grow food, which gives them complete control over the food chain. Now, we might be only talking about grapes in Aldi, but that's all the grapes in Aldi are seedless. That should concern you. You cannot go, despite the climate limitations, and you cannot go and get a banana and grow a banana tree from it. There's no seed in it. And now if you wanted, you couldn't grow a grape from a grape. That should concern you. You can't grow wheat from a sliced pan. So where can you get these seeds to grow these foods? And if you get the seeds, are they genetically modified? But that's only scratching the surface on other issues, because Monsanto are trying to copyright a tomato. That should seriously concern you. But the point I'm making is this. The difference between food grown in the ground and meat is that if a cow isn't healthy, it'll fall over. That's hard to hide. But if a tomato's unhealthy, it might just continue looking like a tomato. So if somebody wanted to harm you by the food chain, it wouldn't be through animals. Because if it kills you, it's likely to kill the animal. And therefore it wouldn't be possible to hide it. But it would be possible to hide it in the vegetables. It would be possible, theoretically, to starve you while you're eating vegetables. Or poison you to death while the vegetables are appearing, at least aesthetically, to the uneducated as perfectly fine. That's a tomato. But it might be a tomato with inadequate amounts of nutrients, which is triggering your immune system and poisoning you with chemicals. Yeah, looks like a red piece of fruit. But so does one made out of plastic. So my point is, hard to hide a sick cow. Easier to hide a sick tomato. Push on to get you off meat. Push on to get you eating vegetables. Push on to copyright vegetables. Push on to remove seed. All these things should seriously concern you. You go to Aldi, try and find a grape with a seed in it. I have noticed that potatoes have become more and more pale. I have noticed that kale is impossible to ferment in a brine. That should concern you, because there's only two things possible there. Chemicals are killing the bacteria, and or the vegetable is devoid of adequate nutrients to feed the bacteria so that it would ferment. This is very serious. Because if bacteria can't grow on the vegetable, what's the vegetable doing to your microbiome? What's it doing to the bacteria in you after you eat it? And if it can't even feed bacteria, can it feed you well over time? Again, impossible to hide a dead cow. Easy to hide a vegetable that is inadequate and has the capacity to poison you, because they have poured chemicals on the vegetables and they've continued to grow despite this. Try pouring chemical on a cow consistently while it's growing. You cannot hide the negative, noxious, poisonous effects of chemicals on a cow. You can on a vegetable. There's a push on to abandon the consumption of meat, and even the production of it. They're ordering the destruction of beasts en masse, while seeds are being reduced, while they're genetically modifying the fruit and vegetables so that they don't contain seed. Where does that lead? Not enough animals to feed the people. And animals take time, a considerable amount of time, to grow to maturity such that they would yield enough meat to feed starving people. Vegetables might grow in a year. But if those vegetables are devoid of nutrients, how long before you starve while eating them? Do these things not concern you? The lack of seed in fruit should be illegal. It should be against the law. What's the advantage of a seedless grape? I don't like the seed in my teeth. Grow up. It's not good to modify a fruit in such a manner that it no longer has life potential. Do you not understand that? The seed itself is food for you. It's also your ability to plant food in the ground and watch it grow. That's your freedom as a human being. These corrupt governments, these satanically, demonically, these fallen angels and these demons, these disembodied hybrid giants that are mad, demonic ghouls, are all behind this process to bring about destruction. They are death propagating themselves, blabbing all day long through the media to bring in negative vibrations that they can parasitically feed on. And now they're trying to remove your food, or at least the beneficial nutritional values of them. So my point to you is, if a cow has the ability to live, it has the ability to give life. Understood? Because it is living, therefore it must contain life potential in its meat. But if a fruit grows from the ground, it doesn't necessarily have to contain life potential in order to do so. Because it's animated of the sun, whereas a cow is not. So there's a different transfer of energy. You understand what I'm saying to you? So this is a very serious matter. Removal of seed. Removal of beasts to be consumed. See, the thing about eating a beast is it must contain all of those nutritional and mineral values to sustain life. It grew to adulthood. Different if you ate a starving animal, but even the remaining meat would have nutritional value. It would, certainly. But that's not necessarily the case with fruit or vegetables. Because they can grow, but they can grow in a way that's really poor, nutritionally poor. And if you look at the vegetables, as I said earlier on in this video, if you look at the potatoes and things like that, they're getting awful pale looking. And minerals and chlorophyll and all of those good nutritional values or nutrients will cause the vegetable to be rich in colour and darker in colour. When it's all pale like that, just like a human being, if they're really, really pale, something's not right. So, if you're not implementing proper farming procedures, or you're spraying them with chemicals, or you're genetically modifying the seed or the fruit so that it doesn't contain seed, what are the other negative knock-on effects of that in terms of the fruit's ability to retain nutrients? Because you have to assume and know that the knowledge of a scientist who's modifying foods genetically is greater than the knowledge of the average person on the workings of DNA. So what are they doing that we don't know about? Well, you could boggle your mind on that all day long. So we have to look at what we do know first. Removing seed potential. They're removing, which means they're genetically modifying the foods, which means they're interfering with its DNA and its genetic makeup. But to what extent? Do they even know the full ramifications of their actions? Probably not. Because they don't know everything about what they're doing. Or the impact of it, the full impact of it. They don't. They might know something about what they're doing, but not all about what they're doing. They might know some of the impact of what they're doing, but not all of it. So they're playing with fire and they're in water that's far above their heads. So, but they don't care about that. They're only trying to do harm in many cases. So they know that they can do that by interfering in this way or that. Again, the full extent of that harm they can't calculate fully. But they can have a guess. They guesstimate. That's what they do. They're demons. They work on probabilities because they're not all knowing. So the demons that operate in those scientists who are demon possessed, servants of Belial, the devil, and his evil spirit of hell. So these interferences with our food chain should concern you. Removal of beasts, which we know to be a food source that is complex and compound, a whole food. So eating meat will give you every nutrient that that animal had. So it'll give you their minerals and their vitamins and all of that stuff which was contained in their meat. And they must have had enough to sustain their own life, therefore they have adequate nutritional value. Whereas again, that's not necessarily the case with a piece of fruit that looks like a piece of fruit, because it may have been interfered with. So I've made that point. So that's something that occurred to me a long time ago. I meant to make a video on it. It recurred to me today, or reoccurred. And so I've made this video for your consideration. It's not to panic you. It's not to worry you or to lower your vibration or upset your day. It's simply to expose the unfruitful works of darkness, make you aware of them, and really cause you to start questioning. Why are my potatoes pale? Why does my food not taste as well? Why is it rather tasteless? Why is it so pale and unripe? Some food is so bad that it ends up consistently in the clearance section, because nobody would otherwise buy it. It's of such a poor quality. Producing it in bulk, they're buying it in bulk, they're selling it in clearance aisles. So it's hardly about profitability or sustainability, because they're consistently in the clearance sections. They know what they're doing. They're getting you used to consuming foods which are lesser quality, and you're accepting it and seeking them out because they're cheaper. You're contracting with them in your conscious mind, and they're inviting you to. They condition your behaviours because they can't force them. So they use clever little mechanisms to usher you towards that way of living, and to having new expectations of your environment and how you encounter it and engage it. and manipulating your behaviours by placing something here and there and there and there, and there, inviting you to it. And it's very insidious, and it's actually highly unlawful, seriously treasonous, because they're manipulating people through money. If I make you basically less than a slave monetarily, you've no choice but to buy that which is cheapest, because you couldn't otherwise reach on everything you have to purchase. It's no longer really a choice, is it? You buy that or you starve. You're being very slowly manipulated to starve to death by eating food that is not nutritionally adequate. Wake up, guys. Wake up. Wake up. Blessings in Jesus' name. Take it back now. Take it back and turn it around. Because they intend to reduce the population. They intend to. They're mad. They're working for the devil. He's a killer. Wake up. We have statutory rights. There are things in place governing the quality of the production of food. They're not abiding by it. They're criminals. They're a criminal cabal of Freemasons. Wake up. Jesus is Lord. It's not to scare you again. They're not doing what they know to be best practice. And they know what the negative ramifications are. Therefore, they're deliberately harming people.